Hey everyone, welcome back to GeoDecode. Today, we're tackling a massive, really polarizing situation that's reshaping the Middle East and global ties. The superpower struggle between America and Iran. Just days ago, a pretty direct warning shot was fired, and it's got people buzzing, from Washington, D.C. right across the region itself. We're going to break it down. What's driving this conflict? How each side is playing its hand, and, why it matters. It's all based on the sources we've gathered, designed to give you a quick, thorough understanding.
Yeah, and it's really crucial, I think, to look beyond just the absolute latest headlines here. This isn't just about recent events. The sources we looked at, they really reveal this deep strategic game. It's been unfolding for decades, lots of intricate layers, shaping not just regional stability, but, global power dynamics, too. You got to grasp the chess moves to get the picture. Absolutely. Okay, let's unpack this. Just days ago, U.S. warplanes launched a precision strike, an Iranian-linked weapons depot in eastern Syria. This was clearly a direct warning shot. But here's the real question, maybe the core one. Can America still stop Iran's, what looks like an unstoppable rise in the Middle East? Or, has Washington already lost the game it started? What are the big hurdles?
Well, that strike, like you said, it's definitely a direct action, but it's a manifestation of tension that honestly goes back decades. It's not new. It's an ongoing struggle, right? Both sides keep evolving their tactics. And the real challenge for the U.S., I think, is the nature of Iran's strategy itself. It's not always that kind of head-on fight you can just counter with one strike.
Right. So that strike is like a snapshot. But for the bigger picture, this multi-decade thing, we need to look at Iran's playbook. The sources suggest Iran's strategy is calculated, not chaotic. It's a long game. So what does that calculated approach actually look like?
It's incredibly strategic, based on a few key pillars, really. First, there's this heavy reliance on proxy warfare, supporting local militias, non-state actors, not direct fighting themselves usually. This lets them project power without the direct costs or risks of open war. It's smart because it taps into existing local issues. Then there's this remarkable strategic patience. They endure sanctions, immense pressure, but they play the long game. They wait for the right moments. And underneath it all, these strong ideological alliances connecting different groups to Iran's, its revolutionary vision, it makes for a pretty formidable network.
It really does paint a picture of patience, deep strategy. So when we talk about this shadow empire using these methods, where do we see the actual footprints? Where has Iran really dug in and shown this calculated expansion?
The sources point to several key spots. In Lebanon, for instance, it's Hezbollah. Powerful politically, powerful militarily. Then in Iraq, they've built strong ties with various PMF militias, the Popular Mobilization Forces. That gives them a real foothold. Syria, of course. They were absolutely instrumental in propping up the Assad regime, changed the outcome of the civil war. In Yemen, supporting the Houthi movement. What's really striking, though, is that after decades, literally decades of crippling sanctions, Iran is still deeply embedded in all these places. It just shows how resilient, how effective their strategy in these alliances really are. Makes you wonder how a traditional power even counters that kind of network.
Yeah, it sounds like while the U.S. was spending trillions fighting wars, dealing with other crises, Iran was just quietly, patiently building this whole network. So what has America tried to do about this shadow empire? What have been the main countermeasures?
Well, the U.S. has definitely tried a range of things. Though, like you said, the sources question how effective they've really been at rolling back Iran's influence. Obviously, crippling sanctions designed to starve the economy, force behavior change, but clearly not regime ending. There have been targeted assassinations. Qasem Soleimani in 2020 is the big one. A major blow to their Quds Force leadership, no doubt. And lots of diplomatic pressure. Think about the nuclear talks, trying to curb their nuclear ambitions.
Yeah.
Mostly failed so far. And then, like we mentioned, that very recent July 2025 airstrike in Syria, specifically hitting Iran-aligned infrastructure.
It's interesting, though, because the story we often get is about all this intense pressure on Iran. But here's the twist the sources point out. It seems like every blow, every sanction, every strike, maybe it actually strengthens Iran's resolve, doesn't seem to break it. Why do these pretty powerful U.S. actions seem to, backfire or at least not get the job done?
It's a really complex dynamic, yeah. And a critical point comes up here.
Yeah.
One reason is Iran's strategy, especially relying on proxies. It creates this highly decentralized, very adaptable network. So it's incredibly hard to just decapitate their operations with a few targeted strikes. It's like that Hydra myth, right? Cut off one head. Plus, the sources highlight the deep ideological motives behind Iran's alliances. External pressure. That can actually be framed internally as proof they're right, justifying resistance. It can solidify support, both at home and regionally, for their long-term goals. They've just gotten really good at operating under pressure. Traditional punishments maybe aren't as effective.
Okay, so if these strategies aren't breaking Iran's resolve, maybe even reinforcing it, what does this all mean for the future? Where are things headed in the region?
Well, connecting the dots here, the whole strategic landscape seems to be shifting pretty dramatically. For one, Iran is now closer to nuclear capability than it's ever been. That just fundamentally changes the math for everyone involved. A whole new level of threat. And they're actively forging new significant alliances, deepening ties with global powers like Russia, like China, and remarkably, even patching things up with Saudi Arabia. Remember that detente post-2023? That completely reshapes regional dynamics. At the same time, America looks, well, the sources portray it as increasingly overstretched. Big commitments in Ukraine, Taiwan, plus all the turmoil back home. The sources make a really strong point. America is no longer the single superpower. And that directly hits its ability to just shape events in the Middle East like it used to. The whole board looks different now.
This analysis definitely paints a picture where, well, if Iran's rise is like a checkmate in slow motion, makes you ask, is Washington playing the wrong game entirely?
That's exactly the provocative question the sources push us towards. It really suggests that while the U.S. often focused on containing Iran with, traditional military power, economic pressure, Iran was busy executing a totally different kind of long-term strategy. One that uses regional dynamics, asymmetric tactics, ideological resilience, and it's arguably worked to their significant advantage, maybe outmaneuvering those traditional power plays.
This has been a truly fascinating GeoDecode exploration into the U.S.-Iran dynamic, really drawing on some deep insights from the sources you shared. It certainly leaves us with a lot to think about as we watch all this unfold.
Yeah. Can America adapt? Or, as Iran already won this new Middle East? Which leads to an important question for you listening. What do you think is the most effective path forward for the U.S. in this incredibly complex situation?